Hi friends! I'm sure that each of us has our own favorite movies, but many of us don't stop to think about the fact that it is the shooting location that gives the movie its special atmosphere and completes the picture. Few people know that architect John Lautner is the record holder for the number of films in which his work appeared. His creations became the protagonists of many famous films. They appear in Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction and the Coen brothers' The Big Lebowski. However, in order to build a successful career in Hollywood, just having a diploma is not enough. After all, there are many architects, but not all of their names appear in the credits of famous Hollywood films. I'll get ahead of myself to say that the hero of our story made his way on the red carpet in a peculiar way, which impressed a huge number of people. The general public would have likely never learned his name if a risky project didn't fall into his lap in the 1960s. The location was the San Fernando Valley in the Hollywood Hills. The project was impractical. It was very hard to create what the customer had in mind, especially in such a strange and difficult landscape. The thing is that the site of the future private house was located on the slope of a steep hill. The young aerospace engineer, Leonard Malin, could not start construction without an appropriate and unique design, which was hard to come up with because the slope was so steep. After inheriting the land from his father-in-law, he learned that nobody was able to come up with anything suitable for the space for decades. It was highly unlikely that he would be able to use the land as he wished. In addition, the young engineer could not boast of a large fortune, even though he had just inherited land in the Hollywood Hills. He had a very meager budget for implementing his vision and a plot of land on which was likely impossible to build a house. After he became the owner of the land, he even had to endure the ridicule of his neighbors who thought that he was completely crazy for considering building a house on that plot. Maybe the land would have remained empty and abandoned if it wasn't for a fateful meeting that breathed life into the place. At that time, Lautner had been unemployed for a long time and was barely making ends meet, while Malin had spent several months desperately trying to find an architect who would be willing to design his future house. The situation was complicated by the fact that they were working with the very modest budget of only $30,000. It was important to save everywhere possible. As you already understood, no one wanted to take on this ambitious project except for Lautner. Actually, at the time, Lautner had no other offers and had to pay rent, which is why he decided to take on the project. After much thought and various creative considerations, he completely stunned the customer with what he had to say. He decided to neglect standard construction methods on slopes, which would have cost Malin crazy amounts of money. He chose not to remove a huge area of hill with an excavator and not to use a retaining wall to hold up the mountain, since those would be very difficult and costly undertakings. After taking a few days, he came to the customer with an ingenious solution. He designed a one-story octagonal building. The future house would not stand on the ground, but quite literally hover in the air. According to the plan, the house would sit on concrete pillars and tower 15 meters above the ground. It would rest on a massive concrete platform with a diameter of 6 meters. Most importantly, this design enabled the natural environment to remain untouched and eliminate the need to carry out expensive work on the site. Of course, Leonard Malin was very confused when he tried to picture the house in his head. Remember, it was the 1960s. However, he saw confidence and knowledge in the eyes of the architect. A few days later, he agreed to this adventure. At that moment, it seemed like the only option. In short, this is how the construction of the flying saucer began. John Lautner decided to make the structure of the house out of wood and steel. He strengthened the roof with curved wooden frames. This was a very intentional decision since the future residence was located in a seismically hazardous area. I'll get ahead of myself to say that the house really did withstand hurricanes and floods, proving its design to be incredibly successful. The north side of the house included a living room, kitchen, and dining room. The south side, which overlooks the hill, includes 4 bedrooms and a bathroom. At the very top of the house, Lautner placed a round ceiling lamp that provided light even to the farthest parts of the house. The architect hid the electric cables inside a column. He placed the house's recreational areas under the roof. Around the perimeter of the house were chick windows that provided light and a panoramic view of the entire Los Angeles. Friends, even now, I catch myself thinking that I would move to that house in a heartbeat. In general, the house looks like a UFO. It hovers above the ground and is definitely something you wouldn't regularly see, especially back in the 1960s. But that's not all. Since the homeowner was a car enthusiast, a special window overlooking the carport was installed in the lower part of the house. A private funicular, which is another one of the house's quirks, went from the carport up the slope and stopped at the narrow bridge that stretched to the house's entrance near the kitchen. The total area of the Miracle House was 200 square meters, enough space for a big family. Of course, Malin's small budget did not cover all these expenses, which became apparent during the work. The architect, however, had more surprises coming. Lautner received corporate sponsorship, including funding from a Southern California gas company and support from the ChemSeal Corporation of America. They provided sealants, plastics, and other materials free of charge in exchange for the ability to use the house in their advertising campaigns, as well as the right to call it the Chemisphere. The architect himself, however, had originally intended to call his creation the Capitol. But what isn't one ready to give up for the sake of realizing a life project? Lautner was able to raise $100,000, which was more than enough to finish what he started. It took only 1 year to carry out all the work, and the futuristic flying saucer immediately attracted the attention of the public, and as a result, also the Hollywood giants. As Lautner himself later admitted, he did secretly hope that this project would draw attention to him. As you can see, the risk he took was well worth it. As for the customer, he received the most talked about house in Hollywood for only $30,000 and couldn't be happier. Since then, the Chemisphere has made numerous appearances in well-known films, including Charlie's Angels and countless others. It was even parodied in the episode of The Simpsons as Troy McClure's house. Worldwide recognition did not only bring John Lautner fame, but also constituted a personal victory, which is most important for all creative individuals. Malin lived in the house for about 12 years, but ended up selling it because of financial problems. The new owners rented out the building, and it was often used for Hollywood parties, which eventually led to the deterioration in the condition of its interior. By the 1990s, the interior was outdated and deteriorated significantly. It was necessary to invest a lot of money in order to modernize the house. Its next owner became the German publisher Benedikt Taschen, who purchased the Chemisphere in the year 2000 for about $120,000. He restored the building and later received an award from the Los Angeles Conservancy. During the restoration, all those elements that were simply unable 40 years prior were added to the house. It became equipped with the most advanced technologies. It is worth noting that even in the year of 2000, it looked like a futuristic house from the past. The Chemisphere is now a Los Angeles landmark. In 2008, a panel of experts from the Los Angeles Times recognized it as one of the all-time best houses in the US. The unique design of the futuristic house became not only the protagonist of many movies, but also John Lautner's pride and legacy. Prior to that project, nobody believed in him. As for the architect himself, he died in 1994 at the age of 83. He worked in Hollywood for the past 30 years of his life. Initially, friends, I just wanted to tell you about the structure of this amazing house, but it turns out that its history is no less fascinating. What do you personally think of this historic house? Could you live in such a place, literally on the edge of the abyss? Make sure to share your opinions in the comments. That's all for today. Rate the video if you liked it. See you soon. Bye.